hand over my microphone to Joseph.
Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. Gents, likewise, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
I reckon we just get cracking, jump straight into it. So we had a brief introduction already, but I would love to make another round, let you guys have the stage, show your projects. How about we start with David?
Well, can you guys hear? Okay, cool. So happy to be here. David Bennahum, CEO, co-founder of READYgg Games. We're doing a layer 3 that enables mostly Web 2 game studios to enter Web 3 seamlessly from soup to nuts. So we'll talk more about it, but excited to talk about this topic and be on the panel.
I'm Jamie Thomson, CEO of Vulcan Forge. We're one of the leading blockchain game studios. Been around for about 5 years now. Grown from a staff of 3 people to over 160. You might know us from the ticker PYR, as opposed to the company Vulcan Forge. We've got about 12 games from mobile to desktop, and we're doing our thing for blockchain gaming.
There you go. All right then. Well, obviously a lot has changed in the space over the years. And I'd like us to start by hearing a bit about what your initial motivations were, what inspired you to join the space and start integrating blockchain technology, and then whether or not those motivations have changed at all. Like, how has the thesis evolved over time?
Should I go first?
Sure.
Well, so our background at READYgg Games, we've been building like gaming technology for game developers for at least 5 years now. I'd say 3 years ago, we had an esports platform. It was running cash gaming on mobile devices. And we were interested in expanding our pricing to include things like NFTs. And so as we got into looking into that, we found the technical hurdles to actually get this done were incredibly high. And we're pretty good technologists, like in our company. And when we saw that and began to realize what was needed, which is really all the live operations to run a game on chain, we started building it, at which point it became clear that is something a lot of other people would want. And so we then productized it, basically. We have, I think, stayed pretty close to our vision, which was something like a PlayFab or a GameSparks, if you guys in the gaming industry know what I'm talking about, for Web3 gaming, but then beyond that, creating an ecosystem around all the publishers. So our insight was really to not be a publisher, but to serve the publishers with all the tooling they need. So since then, we've went live, I guess, 6 months ago. We signed 16 major studios in 6 months that represent 2,000 games and 250 million monthly active players in their Web 2 titles. Those studios range from hyper-casual mobile on Android and iOS to hardcore on PC to browser-based games, HTML5. So it's a whole range of things. And we're about to start launching all of this into a huge bundle. We think it translates into about 10 million monthly active paying wallets in the first 3 to 6 months from launch. So it'll be the largest cohort of Web3 gaming participants in the world. And we're really excited to then get the KPIs and data, which gets, I guess, to your question, which is how might things change? I think the answer is when we start getting all this data across casual games, hardcore games, PC games, games on the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, such an incredible diversity of games, those KPIs will be, I think, groundbreaking for the industry because they're going to give meaningful scaled KPIs on multiple dimensions of CAC, LTV, like all these missing statistics. How does Web3 give lift? We're going to try to share that as much as possible with the world and hopefully really create the case that really all games need to begin to migrate to Web3. So that's kind of where we're at. We're really trying to bring this forward. And I think in the next 2 weeks, we'll settle on a partner, like an L1 partner for this. It's so much volume that we're figuring out who to work with, at which point we'll announce and all the games will start going.
Yeah, talking about L1s, I know you guys recently spun up Elysium and transitioning there. So how has the journey been for you?
Yeah, I mean, rather than talking about our company and where we are, I'd rather talk about your question next. I think it's a very good question where we are now as opposed to where we are before in terms of blockchain gaming and the metaverse hype. And it's a good question, actually, because when we started, we were a game studio first, and we thought, you know, you've got this enormous industry of crypto and lots of money in this space, and you've got gaming, which is like $1 billion industry and billions of players. If you combine the two, you're going to create this $1 trillion company, and everything's going to come to life, and eureka. And actually, as the journey's progressed, we found the opposite's true. A lot of gamers, mainstream gamers, don't really want to move into crypto, and the crypto sort of gaming users are sort of don't care so much about the game experience and more sort of want to earn. And that was a real sort of hard thing for us because we obviously thought it was going to be this eureka moment, and it didn't happen. So as we moved along, we kind of realized that these two demographics didn't merge as well as we thought they would, and this new demographic has come out a lot more. And I think that's what we should start targeting. I know it's very easy for us to always say, look, we just need better games, and we have better games, and the mainstream users are going to come over and use blockchain. But we have to start seeing, in my opinion anyway, is gaming is a complete separate industry. You've got the gamers there. If you're going to make a really dynamite game, then you're going to get more money probably from the sales in the gaming market. There's a reason Ubisoft and all the other big companies haven't migrated to blockchain yet, because they're making their billions in traditional gaming. I think we need to go the other way and actually embrace the fact we're different, and we are using blockchain, and we are using NFTs, transactions, monetary economic systems within it, and base the virtual world of the game around what blockchain offers, as opposed to try and poach gaming users into there. So that's what I would say we've done a U-turn on. Rather than trying to sort of match and compete with the sort of mainstream gaming industry, we've actually sort of forging out your own path, your own demographic. And it's a very different demographic. And in doing so, you know what people like and what they work, and more money sort of flows into the products.
To go a little bit deeper on that, and it sounds like you're both taking different approaches. One maybe more, you could title it Web 2.5, and a more sort of on-chain focus. I'm curious, and David, we'll start with you. For the Web 2.5 approach, where does that value add come from the blockchain itself? I know we've talked about increasing revenues or decreasing CAC, for example. Is that kind of the clear focus there?
Yeah, so the publishers we deal with have made a commitment to enter Web3, like independent of us. We don't evangelize Web3. We know the minute we're evangelizing Web3 to a publisher, we probably are ahead of ourselves here. So these publishers have independently built very successful multi-million-dollar gaming businesses in Web2, and they're looking for an edge. And they're looking for an edge in a business that has very thin margins, where actually a lot of the user acquisition cost, which relates to the CAC, it is the CAC, is constrained by things like IDFA and other changes in the way we can track ads and et cetera. So in this extremely thin margin competitive business, if Web3 can provide an edge, then it's really interesting. And so I think from their point of view, they're looking at the edges coming from basically a couple of different places. Like one place is that the value of the digital assets they sell in the game, the swords, the skins, et cetera, increases because of the tradability, collectability, rarity, and the secondary like market potential. Like that's a lot of additional value into an asset. So one hypothesis is that that asset, maybe it still costs $2 for that asset, but in Web3, you're just going to get more conversion to buy that asset because there's so much more value in it. Forget even raising the price. Well, if your conversion goes up, happy days are here. Like if you went from a 4% conversion to a 7% conversion, that's an extraordinary increase in conversion. The second thesis is around retention. Oh, well, can I build a loyalty program? Like we have a publisher, Mini Wagos, that's entering in with us, 10 to 15 million monthly active players on their browser-based PC games. They want to create a loyalty system backed by NFTs where basically players in their games would be rewarded for continuing to play. Well, that gets to your retention number. Hey, if I can move retention by relative 10-15%, that cascades significantly down. The third scenario is, in fact, the user acquisition scenario. We are all paying a tremendous amount of money to Google and Facebook to drive app installs and game installs, and those companies are worth trillions of dollars, and the reason why, in part, is because they take way too much money in the funnel. And so if, in the context of Web3, there's a new way to target and identify qualified game players from their on-chain data, and that meaningfully reduces the acquisition cost, well now, I have put three things together through Web3. More value in my asset, higher retention for my existing players, and possibly lower acquisition costs. You put that together, and that could add up to a 30, 40, 50% increase in gross revenues or your unit economics. I mean, we don't really know, but that's the question, could it? So these publishers we're working with take the approach of saying, listen, we have a huge portfolio of games. We're already making millions of dollars a year. Why don't we take one of our middle titles and just start A/B testing it in Web3? Let's ask these questions. We'll take this middle title, not our super hit, not one that's super not doing well, one that's sort of in the middle. Let's just take it, let's start A/B testing it, and let's get the data. These are all totally data-driven companies. There's no modern-day publisher that makes money that isn't a data company at the heart of it. So this is what they want to do, and they've had a huge frustration with Web3 that the engineering implementation costs so much capital, and they're not even tech companies. They can't even really execute on it. It's just too hard. What an enormous waste of capital. So if we could just do this, capital non-intensively, get the testing, get the A/B data, then we can start turning the taps. And if the KPIs show us, in fact, some meaningful lift, then we're all in, and we can start moving the rest of the game. So that's their strategy. It's extremely practical. It's not blockchain ideological. It's business ideology. Make more money. Give me an edge. And we like that conversation because we're business people too, and that works out pretty well, and we will see what we will see. I'm excited in the next, I'd say 90 days to start giving out this data publicly, and hopefully it'll be awesome because then it'll maybe create a stampede of Web 2 companies saying, this is profitable, I want to do this too, which would be great for the whole industry, which is what we need to do here.
Yeah. Make more money, right? Make more money. So whereas David is tackling the sort of the question of like how can we incrementally increase margins, I think on the other side, this argument of, well, let's go fully on-chain approach or a more on-chain agnostic sort of approach and get a small cohort of players that are deeply monetized and spend a lot in the game. From your perspective, I don't know if you have any sort of data or perspective on what does that look like for a game to be sustainable? How many players roughly do there need to be that are, you know, Web3 native, and then how much are they spending on average?
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the ultimate goal is to have a smaller amount of users who are paying a lot of money. I'm just saying that that's where the situation is now. And I think there seems to be some sort of, not panic, but this focus on saying, okay, we need 1 billion users. And that's what the blockchain gaming is all about. Whereas I think you can find value, and it certainly is when in any sort of business when there's an innovation or evolution or there's some sort of new technology coming around, there's always a small amount of user base. Everything's always very in infancy at the beginning before people start changing it. I'm just saying I don't think we have to measure success in that way. We don't have to measure success with users, or even monetary-wise. Or I mean, there are so many sort of KPIs you could use. For example, Axie Infinity, you know, their game wasn't the best, wasn't exactly Counter-Strike, but they had, you know, millions of users, and they rewarded people who, you know, who earned monthly salaries from it. Is that a successful game? I mean, it certainly wasn't a fun game. It certainly wasn't billions of people. It rewarded people, so it's successful in the fact that like people could, from developing countries, could earn money, and it had the user count. I'm just saying we're in such uncharted territory. It's too easy to say. We just need fun games which can be tokenized. We're in a place where you could actually utilize metaverse. I would say is not so much a game with blockchain technology. It's a virtual world which has an economy within it. I mean, you've got a way to sort of pay people. You've got a way to own assets. You've got these different things that games didn't have. And I don't know. I generally think there's a reason why these game publishers haven't used blockchain technology that much yet. I don't think that they're unaware of it, and I think they have sampled and they have tried to use it. I know Ubisoft added a couple of NFTs and they got this enormous pushback on it. And I'm trying to work out why that is. And I generally think it's because they don't think they're going to make any more money doing it. And we could say, well, look, users can own their assets in this Ubisoft game. But that doesn't really mean much anyway, because these NFTs still depend on the centralized game existing. Like, it doesn't matter if you own your sword in Assassin's Creed on the Xbox. If Assassin's Creed stops developing, you can't use it. But what the advantage of an NFT really is that it can be used anywhere because it's on a transparent ledger. It's on a blockchain where it can be pulled out. The data can be used in multiple games. And I think that kind of interoperability and the different kind of cross-platform uses of NFTs is where we'll see blockchain gaming focus. Instead of just saying, okay, well, now if you could own that sword in the game, it's going to make that game more valuable. Well, not really. I mean, it would allow sort of transactions between users more valuable, more transparent, and sort of more priced up more, but still it's centralized depending on the actual game existing in itself, even on Xbox existing. So I think that's where we'll sort of spread a blockchain technology, a more sort of interoperable global metadata hub that can be used by anything in entertainment.
To switch gears a little bit, David, I know you like to throw around the numbers of the partners that you're bringing on and the number of users that they have. And it's a significant number, seeing as most chains these days are, volume is limited, let's say. When you're picking your partner, how much does scalability factor into the decision, seeing as we have seen in the past spikes from other side Meta Mint, for example? And where does scalability play into that decision?
It's like the table stakes, meaning the minimum requirement is that there's that trust that it can scale, right? If that trust isn't there that it can scale, then it's almost like we're misleading our publishers to work with that L1, because we want our publishers to be successful, and that implies, obviously, that a lot of players are going to come into their games. And if we've picked a partner who can't scale, then we've done a really big disservice to our publisher partners who are kind of counting on us as the de facto representative of this club. We're turning into like a club here with buying power. And so we should leverage that to get the best possible deal for everybody in the club. This is one of the benefits of being in an ecosystem, right? But scalability is central. It gets to product quality. The other piece that's pretty central is the quality of the team on that side, meaning how collaborative are they? How responsive are they? We have an excellent engineering team. Do they have an excellent engineering team? Can we kind of solve problems together quickly, effectively? If those things line up, then they're qualified. I do think down the road, there's a multi-chain situation. So eventually, the dependence on any one L1 will just recede for everybody, because there are such incredible efforts being made to enable that interoperability. We heard some of them today at the keynotes, et cetera. And those are meaningful and valid. But at the end of the day, it is about product quality. That's the most important piece. And you can never really know, right? I mean, you can know as much as you know in terms of scalability, but it is a trust thing in the end, because you can never really know the future. And if some or more of these games really blow up, yes, you could have this kind of, fortunate problem, of that much demand.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out in reality, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And Jamie, as someone who's building out that layer 1 infrastructure, what were some of the key considerations that you and your team sort of took on when you're bringing in, developing these new games, and you want to ideally scale them to millions of users?
Well, I guess the sort of the usual concerns: ease of onboarding. Gas prices have to be low. There has to be a way to have social logins and such. But I'll tell you an interesting sort of story. What we did, we had I said we were working the mainstream market first, and then they were successful enough. They brought enough income in, and we moved into sort of blockchain games. And one of our games, Vulcanverse, was we were built it from scratch around the community. So therefore, it was an MMO RPG, fantasy, Greco-Roman, and it's obviously doing quite well now. But at the beginning, it was nothing. And we literally, because when you launch into crypto or blockchain world, people need to know what you're doing every second of the day, because some people have invested, they bought a token, or they want to see what you're doing. So transparency is key. So we couldn't say, listen, guys, give us a few years, we're going to make this MMO, and we'll come back to you. We had to show them development every single day we were doing it. And so Vulcanverse was literally this big MMO RPG. And from the beginning, we were showing them the worst kind of terrains. We had wolves with their heads on the arms, a centaur with the wrong way around, or nothing worked. But what was interesting was, because before we even made the game, they own the NFTs, they own the assets. Because they own these assets we were playing with, they didn't care. They had this emotional attachment to what we were making. So even though their wolf was walking on one leg or backwards, because they own that one of 100 wolves, they had this attachment to a more forgiving nature you wouldn't have in mainstream gaming. If there was a mistake or there was a bug, they'd be absolutely all over you. But because they knew they owned the asset and they see the game developing, they could still sell that one of 100 NFTs to someone else and still earn. So regarding considerations, we do have to sort of think about the mainstream users coming in as social logins. But again, as I said, I've done a bit of a U-turn on this as I've sort of worked in the industry more, and started to think that let's embrace the fact that this is blockchain technology. If there's value, users will find it. If they find there's value to be made and they can make money, or they'll enjoy this blockchain experience, they will find the hurdles to overcome it. And I was going to say that one of our mobile games, Vulcan Creed, in the midst of all this blockchain gaming, we made this just a mainstream mobile game. It went ballistic in the mainstream, but there was no integration for blockchain. It proved exactly what we thought, that these are two individual markets. So in terms of what we're considering, ease of onboarding, low gas, fast transactions, all the usual sort of blockchain concerns.
So you're both looking at blockchain and integrating it within the games at various different degrees. And as the industry has evolved, the ease of blockchain adoption within these games has, gotten easier with a number of different white label solutions becoming available, toolkits, SDKs. There's the Unity tech stack that's come out. For example, I'm curious as to what is available now that you wish you had a couple years ago, and what is still missing and you're looking forward to. David.
I mean, I'm just thinking about this. Certainly what's available now is much more ease of the tooling to integrate with the blockchain. What's available now is a lot more understanding of what does and maybe doesn't work as easily, like in terms of on-chain transactions and what we can all do. What's probably missing now, which would be helpful, is that true interoperability between L1s and L2s. That's missing. That would be useful. It would be useful because it would kind of abstract it even further into just what it really ultimately is, which is a decentralized cloud server. I mean, let's be real. All we're doing here is creating decentralized cloud computing. That's it. But doing it in a decentralized way is really, really hard. So what's missing is just having that work once and for all. That would be awesome. And then I think there's going to be something with AI that will be very, very powerful here, because when you have a decentralized network, there's a lot of autonomous decisions that have to be made in continuously. Having agents, intelligent agents that can make those decisions backed by a smart contract is going to dramatically increase the value proposition in a decentralized network that a centralized network can never, ever replicate. So now you're getting to points of differentiation that have meaningful economic value for the whole world. And so the idea that you could have legally enforceable smart contracts with a well-trained agent that's able to make decisions for me or you or a company or a group of companies or a group of people and take those decisions with other agents in real time and conduct legally binding transactions, whether they're economic or just other types of legal transactions, wow, that is going to be extremely potent and will do a lot to reducing the complexity of enabling a lot of these marketplaces and things to occur, where right now we have to kind of build it all and build all that logic ourselves. It's very cumbersome just to get to then, does this market work? This is what I'm describing is a much more agile way to kind of engineer these questions. So that is something that's missing and is just beginning to be understood. Like Ilya from Near was talking about that today. He's on track with that. That is correct. Intelligent agents with smart contracts is a sort of superpower that differentiates Web3 from really Web2 in a profound way.
I'll approach that question not from the tech point of view, because obviously I'm not the tech-savvy person, but also David covered some great points there. But I think the tech has actually not changed that much in terms of in blockchain for the last 2 years. It's always been there. What I think that wasn't there before and is now, which is very important, is the sentiment's completely different. A few years ago, only 5-6 years ago, crypto was still a scam. Blockchain was only Bitcoin. Everything was, the worst things under the sun was being done by blockchain. Then a couple of years ago, things shifted and people realized there was more use cases for it. There was more entertainment. You had CryptoKitties. You had some very old sort of NFT, CryptoPunks, and all those kind of things sort of coming out. And then, thanks to Axie Infinity blowing up the play-to-earn market, I don't personally like that term so much, but that sort of brought the whole idea of blockchain gaming into mainstream. So I think what we have now, and for those that are working in blockchain gaming, we have it, I say, easy. We've been given everything that's worked and everything that hasn't worked. We've got a mainstream out there who know blockchain in general. Most of the general population don't think it's all some big scam. They understand the concept of crypto. They understand the concept of blockchain. They know that blockchain in gaming has worked. They've heard of play to earn and earning money in the game. So we can look now and say, look, Axie had a great idea here, but this didn't work. This wasn't sustainable. And also, it brought the ceiling of quality of games very low, because the purpose of people going in there was simply to earn money. And if that's the only reason you're going into a game, then the developers don't need to sort of up their ante. They don't need to keep the game exciting. So we have to start saying, okay, this worked there. That was our KPI there. We get users. If you want users just to sort of farm money, do another Axie style. If you want gamers to come, put the level up. So I think what we have now is an awareness. We have a more mature sympathy and understanding of what blockchain technology is. And we've had sort of trial and errors of other companies that have gone through it and what doesn't work. And so, yeah, I think those who are working in blockchain gaming now have the best chance to go for it. And I still don't know if there is a future in blockchain gaming. And I'm talking from the CEO of one of the biggest blockchain gaming companies. I don't personally know if this is going to be the next big thing. I think AI certainly is. I think there's a market for NFTs and blockchain gaming, but whether or not gaming market will pivot to that permanently, I don't know, and I haven't seen an indication of that happening yet.
Fair points. I think to wrap things up, I'd like to ask one last question. We're at this stage in the market where a lot of the games that raised capital over the past 2 to 3 years have built out their games and they're now ready to launch. Jamie, I know you're fairly familiar with this, that in that launch process, the ability to scale for user acquisition can, in some regards, be hindered by Web3, whether that be due to the platform regulations or general onboarding frictions. I'd like you both to list a handful of key considerations that other builders should kind of keep top of mind when it comes to this stage of growth. David will kick off.
I mean, when you say builders, are you limiting the set of builders to pure play startup Web3 game publishers, or like, because there's a lot of different kinds of builders, they're going to have very, very different challenges. So I heard your question is really focusing to one competitive set, which is I've created a studio to build Web3 games, I build Web3 games, this is what I do. That's one cohort, but then there's others, like the ones we deal with, who are not that at all. They'll have very different challenges than the one you're mentioning.
Correct, yeah. To specify, I would say anyone with not taking a Web3 first approach should probably go seek out one of you two to help partner and help sort that out. But for those that are fully
a pure
into this,
Web3 approach, yeah. So I think one of the challenges, and it's really rough, with the pure Web3 approach, is that in the gaming industry writ large, user acquisition is one of the most important business elements that make publishers successful or fail. And it's actually more than game quality. The reality is, if you think you're just going to build an amazing game and put it out there and they're all going to show up, that rarely, if ever, happens. And you can see kind of games that you could argue are kind of, somewhat, they're fine, do really, really well. And the reason they're fine, they do really, really well, is typically the publisher has an ingrained ability to market extremely efficiently to an audience, probably because they've issued other games and they have a huge list of players and they know how to reach them. So what I'm getting at here is if Web3 games don't have a monumental amount of marketing powder, like you need beaucoup de dollars. Like this has to be treated at the level of like releasing a movie or something like that. Do you have a $20 million marketing budget? No. Okay, well, that's going to be a problem because the truth is that's probably what you need. Because yes, your game may be frictional in terms of some of the stuff because it's pure Web3, maybe not in an app store with all the convenience features of Apple and Google Pay and blah, 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 blah. So you've got a lot of friction in your funnel. You're going to need a lot of marketing dollars to overcome that. And so if you see a project that doesn't have a meaningful amount of allocation to marketing, I think they can succeed, but they're kind of have a hand tied behind their back. It's unfortunate. It's real. It's kind of frustrating, right? You're like, dude, do I really need to spend so much money on ads? Like, frick. It's so boring and so annoying and so irritating because you just want to build awesome products and design great stuff and just have that work. But that's just not how it is, unfortunately. So I think for the new entrants coming in that are pure Web3 entrants, they need like a partnership. Maybe they can find an alliance. I mean, maybe they can have an investor in there that's a bigger publisher that has a marketing lift that can help them. There has to be some sophistication. And there's agencies like in LA that do this, that like CAA and others that will partner you with a bigger studio. I feel like there's got to be more fluidity on the marketing side. It's a marketing challenge, honestly, as much as anything. And I don't know if there's enough attention in Web3. There's a lot of kind of like purism in Web3. Like, we're just going to do this. It's going to be awesome. Hold out the flag. And it's like, okay, but in the gaming industry, that's not going to get you very far. And you need to have a really good marketing strategy. It's going to always boil down to having a lot of money, too. So I guess my answer to your question is it's going to be tough without large marketing budgets. And it's through no fault of the tech per se. I just think it's the reality of gaming. It's actually just how gaming works. Unfortunately, you typically need a big partner with money to help you.
Jamie, did you have anything to add?
I agree with David that just because you make a good game doesn't mean it's going to snowball and be incredibly popular. I think there are other KPIs to sort of think about. I disagree with David on the idea that you need a 20 million market budget to sort of make something very popular. I think that in Web2 gaming, in the world of gaming, it's so fierce and competitive, then yes, you might need that. But I think because Web3 gaming itself is so niche and so small, I don't think that's the case now. And I think, go back to my first answer to your first question, if you're you're setting out into the Web3 gaming market, blockchain gaming, then just literally lay out your KPIs clearly. Know who is your target audience. Are you trying to just get people in to farm money, keep it sustainable, and say, look, we've got 1 billion users, in which case you will get users. People will come in. Anyone wants to make money, they find the way to do it. Dexes and all these kind of places, people know how to, I know the times, they're trying to funnel their way in and find a way. Or are you trying to find a good game and whatever? I know the time's good. Thank you very much for your panel.
How can people find you? Socials?
VulcanForge.com, Twitter /VulcanForge, anything with Vulcan Forge on. And actually, we're going to be on TV tomorrow to 300 million homes. Just to put it out there.
That's cool. David Bennahum, you can find READYgg at ready. You guessed it, GG, ready.gg. That's all you need to know, and go from there. Thank you, Joe.
It's been a pleasure. I'm Jackal on all socials. Thank you very much for attending. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Jack.
Have a good day.
Thank you once again. Please give a big round of applause for...